Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and I wanted to talk about, I don't know, kind of like a hopeful video of, one thing that I would change about every single game mode in Galaxy of Heroes. And I did this for game modes that we interact with all the time, right? I think that a lot of the things in this game are really good, that they've made some really good changes, but I think there are some things that would, how do I say this politically correct, right? I'm not always politically correct, but I want to make sure I get my point across and not just complaining. That they could improve player experience, and which would improve spending, improve the people interacting with this game if they made these changes, right? At least that's what I think. So here we go. One way to fix every single game mode. Let's dive right in. We've got our king right here to talk about Grand Arena matchmaking. So the problem with matchmaking in Grand Arena is that it's never been reset, right? I've talked about this plenty of times. I've probably beat this horse so dead it's not even funny. But they've never reset us, right? They've just kind of let the matchmaking be what it is. And so there's these ridiculous matchups that you're getting. And I think all they need to do is reset this or put things in place so that way you don't get these huge disparities, huge mismatches because people just don't interact with the game mode, right? I understand if you don't like Grand Arena, that's fine. But that doesn't mean that your 10 million roster should be going up against somebody with 6 million galactic power. That's not fair. It's not fun for the 6 million player. And if you're the 10 million player, it's not really fun for you either because you're not really playing. You're just, blah, right? I don't know. I think that they could really fix matchmaking and do some things to improve players' experiences. Because I think a lot of players in that early part of Grand Arena get really burnt out of these ridiculous matches that they never really get to fight people who are within their skill range or even within their galactic power range. Forget skill range, because way back in the day before they changed everything, you would fight people within your GP range. And then as time went on, right, you would, if you were winning, right, you would go through, I would go 3-0, 3-0, 3-0, and then you'd kind of get into what they would call your Oroidium and Kyber, because you would climb into them every single month. So eventually you'd get to that point where you're fighting better and better people. Maybe early on you faced somebody who was really good, and then you didn't really fight somebody really good until the end, right? That was kind of the way that GAC worked. And it was fine, because the best people got the best rewards in each of their galactic power brackets. And I think that going back to something like that would really help this game and help players participate with this game mode more. I can't tell you, streaming GAC has been good for me in the sense that I feel like I have to play it, right? I'll actually play it, where there were plenty of times where I'll go up against somebody, and if I lose a single battle, I can't win anymore, right? So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to score 10 points, and I'm not going to pick up the game again because I just don't care. I mean, that's what happens to a lot of people. So fix matchmaking for GAC. I think that would improve players' lives drastically. All right, next is raids. So they just redid the whole raid system, and the only thing I'm going to say is they're going to need to rotate factions. If for the rest of time, for the next, and I'm not saying they need to do this tomorrow, right? I think that would be absurd. But they need to give us fair warning. But I think if they go to a more rotating kind of faction, and even if they keep one the same, even if they kept it that Hut Cartel is good in every single raid or something, whatever, pick a faction. But make sure that one faction is available to use in every single raid. And then rotate the other ones. I think that'd be really healthy for the game. I think that encourages players to not just follow. You purposefully create, I feel like every change they've done lately has been to stop all these farming guides that were, Executor, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, Sith Eternal, all these things, right? There's this very set path that you would follow, and now we're trying to create a new one. And if you just would rotate factions, I think that would give players a lot more creative freedom in terms of what to do with their roster. So I think that would make raids a lot more fun if you rotated these factions and gave us an opportunity to use more of our roster than just a certain subset of characters. I think that'd be really cool. All right, Conquest. So this is going to be something that everybody's talked about, but give us the ability to sim nodes in Conquest. And here's what I would say, right? How can you sim a node, right? You can't just have 3 start it. But let's say that you're going for a specific feat, like the Tusken wins or Night Sister wins. If you 3-star that node, say even you get to a bonus node, and you complete that node, like a bonus node, I think as soon as you 3-star it, you should be able to sim it. But let's say you get to a regular node, and it's one that you're farming wins on because you can't beat the bonus node, but you can beat another one in there. If you beat it with that faction, I think beating it with that faction should allow you to earn the sim feature with that exact same team. I think that would be a huge benefit to it, right? And even if it's like, oh, you can only sim it if you're at 80, stamina or above, right? I don't know. Like, let them pick that out. Or maybe it's at 100 stamina you could sim. I don't know. Just allow us to sim nodes. I think that there's too much time that's spent in Conquest just pressing the auto button. And that's not actually me playing this game, right? That's me hating every single second of Conquest as I'm doing that because I don't have any other option. And if you want players to enjoy this game and play the parts of it that they enjoy, I can tell you Conquest is not it. So give us the option to sim nodes so we can actually spend time doing things that we do enjoy in this game. Because I know a lot of players who won't give territory wars, territory battles, or even Grand Arena as much time as Conquest because of how important Conquest is. So let us sim nodes. Let us get through that game mode a little bit faster with a little bit more ease, and I think you'd find a lot more players, to be enjoying themselves again. All right, Fleet Arena and Squad Arena. You need to change the payout structure. And I've thought of this a long time ago. They took all the crystals away from Squad Arena under the guise that they wanted to get rid of the whole, Squad Arena shard chats, right? The mafias, as they called it. But they didn't do that with fleets. So really that's not their issue then, right? Like, what is the issue? The issue with them was that one team, you invested in one team for Squad Arena, and you could earn max rewards. That, like, I myself was able to get Sith Eternal and Wat Tambor at the time and climb into first place every single day, right? That was what I was able to do. And, you could go and get a single Galactic Legend, and you could get first place every single day with one team. So they moved those to Grand Arena, where you need to invest in an entire roster to be able to succeed. With fleets, the reason they haven't changed that is because of how much more it costs to get fleets than get a Galactic Legend. Like Executor, Profundity, Leviathan now. Like, having all of those things takes a lot of resources that players have to spend, a lot more crystals. So you can imagine that it's a lot harder to just get a single fleet up and running unless you're going for, like, Executor, right? But like, they didn't do that for Fleet Arena. So, like, the way I would change this payout structure is they said, oh, we want to get rid of the mafias. I think all you have to do is, instead of saying, hey, at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time every day, Phil, you have to be in first place to get your 400 crystals. I think what's a much smarter thing is that if I hit first place within a 24-hour window, right? So within a 24-hour window, if I hit first place, I can get my rewards. So, for example, what it'll show you is you'll log on for the day, right? Let's say you log on and you're sitting in, 15th place. It'll tell you, hey, the rewards you've earned during the day are 15th. And then let's say you climb up into, like, 3rd position. It's going to say that you climbed up to 3rd position, and those are the rewards you're going to get. Let's say you get bumped down to 7th. You're no longer in 3rd, but 3rd was the highest place you achieved. You're going to earn those 3rd place rewards. That would 100% fix this whole shard mafia, problem that you have. Because right now, nobody really cares if someone is climbing outside of their payout, right? Like, right now, I could care less if people are getting first place during their payout. But people getting first place during my payout, no, right? That's not happening. But if it was just, oh, I can go climb into first place right now and I'm good for 24 hours, like, people wouldn't care. Right? Who cares? Because you're just going to get to first place anyway. Like, I feel like that would end a lot of the problems you're seeing where there's people locking stuff out and blocking people down and shooting them back because you have to be at a certain position at a very specific time. I think if you just said, hey, get to first place at any point during your payout, at any point during this 24 hours to get your payout, like, that's fine. And even if you had a cooldown period where, like, that way you can't say, okay, I got first place today, oh, my 24 hours resets, and now I need to get to first place, like, I don't need to get first place tomorrow. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say that. I think you would maybe say you need to get to first place, within your 24-hour window that resets at night, right? That whenever your game reset is, that's when that clock resets of getting into first place. And that way, it's kind of when people are asleep that you'll still have to do your daily climbing. But just something to think about, right? That you could do that, and I think that would be really, really cool. Just change that structure. All right, so the next thing with territory battles, allow guild officers to extend and shorten phases. So as a guild officer, this is something that's very near and dear to my heart. The amount of times that you could be just sitting around for an hour or two waiting for a phase to open up because everybody's deployed or your guild is waiting to open up that next phase because, you know, all the planets are preloaded, right? You're at the perfect spot. You're just waiting around for the next phase to start. It'd be great for officers to be able to, like, even if you had to get a majority vote or it's like solely on the guild leader, whatever, that, hey, we're going to extend or shorten this phase. That, you know what? We've got everybody in. We've got 2 hours left. We're gonna close phase 1 and open up phase 2. I think that would be awesome. Like, that would make our lives so much easier. And then on the flip side of that, hey, we need to wait for these 5 people to extend. Let's open up that phase. And it gives officers that ability to say, you know what, we're going to keep phase 1 open for a longer period of time. And then, you know, later on, that time simply comes out of those later phases, whether that's phase 6 or phase 5, whatever it is, that you're able to continue to increase or decrease the amount of time you're spending in a phase. Because think about it, for some guilds, phase 6 might be a complete waste. So if you don't really need a phase 6, you could add that time on to phases 1 through 5. So I don't know, that was something I was thinking about that I think would be really, really good because it allows you to interact with the game a little bit more. It opens up that availability of, like, when you're playing this game on a weekend, you don't always get the same time as you might have on a week, or vice versa for some people. So put the power in the hands of the players to interact with this game. I think sometimes they've almost done too good of a job of making it like you need to be on at this time. They've alienated a lot of people who have things going on in their life that aren't, you know, inclusive of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. All right. The next one for territory wars is smaller zones. I think zones are way too large. I actually think Arnold put a video out where he was saying how his guild is getting burnt out, and they said they want smaller zones too. And I think that's something I've said before. Like, there's so many zones in territory wars, and it's always like the same stuff, right? You're always fighting the same things. It's a very stale game mode. It really hasn't changed. I think territory wars, like, I could even go as far as to say that limit the amount of teams players can contribute. Take ships out of the equation. I mean, I don't know, just do something to make it a little bit more enjoyable. I feel like territory wars is just something that guilds, like, one, there's not a lot of incentive because the difference in rewards between winning and losing really isn't that significant. In the grand scheme of things, it's not that significant. Not nearly as significant as people think it is. So, like, either make it so that way winning makes sense, which then you need to fix matchmaking, or just make it a little bit more enjoyable to play. Because, I mean, like, I don't think you could make it any shorter of a phase because you're matching guilds up from across the world. So, like, you can't have a 12-hour attack phase with one phase opening up at, 1 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time compared to, like, 1 o'clock in the morning somewhere else. Like, that wouldn't be fair. So, I get that they can't shorten that phase, but make them smaller. Make these zones smaller. But if you do make zones smaller, my caveat would be that you need to limit player contributions. So that way you can't have someone completely dump their entire roster and cover, like, a zone, right? Like, right now there's no limit on how many teams you can put down. So me at 8.7 million, I could go down to a 100 million power guild and probably fill an entire zone by myself. Like, limit the amount of teams a player can place if you're going to make zones smaller. And that way you are limiting the impact a single person has on a guild. Because you did that with your raid, right, where you're limiting the amount of score people can do. I think the same thing needs to happen with territory wars, that you need to limit the amount of teams a single person can place down on defense. Offensively, I don't think that's as big of a deal, but defensively, I think that's a lot more, prevalent, right? I don't know. But I offensively, I'm not as concerned about it but defensively, I think I am. And then the last thing, I mean, look, this is just general, but Datacrons go away. The longer that Datacrons have been around, it's very, so what I'm finding that I don't like is that they've kind of recycled some of these things, right? We're back to having protection up Datacrons. I don't know. The more they've been around, the more I'm disliking them, right? Like the more and more, like sometimes you're like, oh, it's kind of fun, and now it's just like, this is horrible. I don't know. I really think that they've messed up with Datacrons. I think initially they probably had some, half decent things where they're like, oh, like this could work, but I think they add far too much to the game. I mean, some of the stats are great, and some of them you're like, what the heck? The re-rolling, I mean, it's all horrible, right? Like, I think they need to go away. They're driving players away. It's forcing people to leave. And honestly, it's a huge resource drain. I myself think about the amount of shard shop currency, ally points that I've spent on Datacrons that I could have spent elsewhere. And that's not even like, I'm not even spending crystals on them, except in like Conquest to refresh nodes. But like, I'm not spending crystal like packs on these Datacrons. So like, I just think that they're so draining to the game, and they're clunky, and there's not enough people who enjoy them. And for this game to succeed long term, right, longer and longer, right? And I mean, it's been around for 7 years, so they've been doing something right. But I think if they want this game to continue to get the numbers they have, they need to listen to us when we say that we don't like Datacrons. We want them to go away. That find another way to make money. You're plenty good at it. Just don't make it Datacrons. I don't know, guys. Maybe this is a bit negative of a video, but I really think that some of these changes need to happen in this game. Like, the amount of time you're playing this game is huge, right? There's a lot of time that you're spending playing this game, and by just adding some of these things to alleviate that, so that way you can play, like, almost spend like quality time in this game. Like, there's so much time, like the Conquest, it would be the amount of quality time I could spend playing this game if I could like not have to press auto on these battles would be huge, right? Or like these rotating factions and raids, right? That like make sure that you're allowing players to have some creativity with their roster, and not just that you need to have these 5 factions for the next 3 years for a raid. I don't know. Like, and then, I mean, in the matchmaking, just like make it fun to play this game, right? Like every other game in the world uses a skill thing, except that skill actually works. In a game like this, that skill needs to be combined with how big your roster is, or else like it just is pointless. So that's the video, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. As always, smash that subscribe button, leave likes, leave comments, and I'll see you all in the next video. Cheers.